What would you do if your husband and mother-in-law vanished without a word for a week? Then, suddenly, your mother-in-law posts a status update on Facebook celebrating your husband's wedding to another woman. The pain would be unbearable, right? Especially when the caption reads, "You deserve all of this, son." But hold on, don't get angry just yet. Be careful with words like that, because sometimes karma comes back much faster and far more brutally than you can imagine. The end of this story has a plot twist that will leave you stunned. The wall clock showed 2 a.m., but Sarah's eyes were wide open. Her feet paced back and forth across the vast, silent living room. It had been 7 days. 7 days without a call, 7 days without a text, 7 days of suffocating anxiety. Her husband, Kevin, and his mother, Carol, had left a week ago. They said there was an urgent matter concerning an inheritance property back in Carol's small hometown in Ohio that needed to be sorted out immediately. Sarah had wanted to go with them, but Kevin forbade it, claiming the trip would be tiring and boring. Being an obedient wife, Sarah eventually agreed, packing them off with a generous amount of spending money and her prayers for their safety. But since the second day, both of their phones had been turned off. "Oh God, please protect Kevin and his mom," Sarah whispered, her voice trembling. Horrible images of car accidents, robberies, or some other disaster on a lonely highway haunted her thoughts. Sarah had already called several relatives in Ohio, but it was no use. No one had seen or heard from Kevin or Carol. She sank weakly onto the cream-colored leather sofa. The luxurious 2-story house felt like a cavernous tomb without them. She stared at her phone's dark screen on the glass coffee table, hoping for even a single notification. Anything to let her know they were still alive. "Please, Kevin, Mom, just send a sign," she whimpered, hugging her knees. A notification sound shattered the late-night silence like a clap of thunder. Sarah's heart pounded, nearly leaping from her chest. She snatched the phone with lightning speed, her hands shaking violently. It was a notification from Carol's Facebook account. "Thank God, she's online." "Thank you, God!" Sarah exclaimed, her eyes welling with tears of relief. A wave of gratitude washed over her. She quickly opened the Blue app, her thumb ready to type a long message, asking where they were and why they had disappeared without a trace. However, her finger froze in midair. It wasn't a private message to her, but a new post on Carol's timeline. A strange feeling crept into Sarah's heart. Why would she post on Facebook before replying to the dozens of frantic texts and missed calls from her? With bated breath, Sarah tapped on Carol's profile picture. The post opened, and in that instant, Sarah's world collapsed. It wasn't a photo of a scenic Ohio landscape, not a picture of a simple lunch at a roadside diner, not a snapshot of them looking tired from dealing with a property dispute. It was a photo from a party. Displayed on the brightly lit screen was Kevin's face. Her husband, whom she had been worried sick about, whom she had cried for every night in her prayers, was standing proudly in an ivory-white tuxedo. A handsome boutonniere was pinned to his lapel. His smile was wide, wider, and more carefree than any smile he had given Sarah in the last 2 years of their marriage. Clinging to his arm possessively stood a beautiful young woman. Her wedding dress sparkled under the spotlights. Her face, covered in heavy makeup, stared at the camera with an arrogant, triumphant gaze. Sarah squinted, her chest tightening. She recognized her. It was Amber, a former co-worker of Kevin's whom he had introduced to her briefly once. At the time, Kevin had sworn up and down that she was just a friend, nothing to be jealous of. And on the other side of the newlyweds stood Carol, the mother-in-law whose life Sarah had been bankrolling. From her daily medications to the clothes she wore, Sarah paid for it all. In the photo, Carol wore a lavish gold brocade dress, her hair styled in a formal updo, with glittering diamond jewelry on her neck and wrist. Her aged face was grinning with immense happiness, one hand resting on Kevin's shoulder with overflowing pride. Sarah's eyes drifted to the caption below the photo. The words Carol had written were like a rusty dagger plunging straight into Sarah's heart, twisting until it shattered. "Congratulations on your wedding, my dear son. You deserve all of this. Finally, a wife who is your equal, beautiful, and classy." Sarah froze. The tears that had fallen from worry moments ago dried up instantly, replaced by an icy chill that spread from her toes to the top of her head. Married? She whispered, her voice sounding foreign and hoarse in her own ears. Kevin got married again? This whole week, you were getting married? Sarah's hand trembled, but she forced herself not to throw the phone. She zoomed in on the photo, examining every detail with the eyes of a wounded hawk. This wasn't some quick, secret affair in a dingy little chapel. This was a massive celebration. The background showed the grand ballroom of a five-star hotel. A giant crystal chandelier hung in the upper corner. Lavish decorations of imported fresh flowers filled the room, creating an expensive, romantic atmosphere. The guest chairs were draped in the finest satin. Sarah's sharp business mind began to work through the storm of her pain. A party this extravagant must have cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. Where did Kevin get that kind of money? His salary as a low-level administrator was often gone by the middle of the month, spent on his personal lifestyle. Carol didn't even have a pension fund. For years, 90% of all household expenses, the car payments, the home renovations, even Carol's spending money had come from Sarah's income, from her successful catering business and rental properties. "You told me you didn't have money to get the car serviced last month, Kevin," Sarah muttered. Her eyes stared intently at Kevin's smiling face on the screen, as if trying to burn a hole through it. "You said your mother was sick and needed extra money for medical bills. It turns out you were saving it for this, to betray me with a lavish party." The anxiety that had tormented her for 7 days vanished without a trace. The pity she had felt for her husband and mother-in-law, whom she thought were in danger, now turned into a raging fire in her chest. They weren't missing. They were having the time of their lives at her expense. They had deliberately turned off their phones so they wouldn't be disturbed by their personal ATM while they enjoyed their happy moment with another woman. Sarah looked at Carol's words again. "You deserve all of this." A cynical smile slowly formed on Sarah's pale lips. She didn't smash the furniture. She didn't scream hysterically and wake the neighbors. Sarah was too classy to lower herself like that. She took a deep breath, filling her lungs with a new strength born from pain. "You're right, Carol," Sarah said softly. Her gaze was cold, piercing the screen as if she were speaking directly to her mother-in-law. "Kevin does deserve all of this. You all deserve the prize for what you've sown." With a now steady finger, Sarah pressed the screenshot button. Once, twice, she saved the evidence of their betrayal neatly. Tonight her tears might fall for the last time for a man named Kevin. But tomorrow was the day Sarah would stop being the stupid, obedient wife. Sarah rose from the sofa, walking slowly to the large window overlooking the dark front yard. This luxurious house was quiet, but inside Sarah's head, new plans were beginning to form. She wouldn't let them come home and find her a broken mess. No. When they returned, they wouldn't find a crying Sarah in the corner. They would find a surprise far bigger than a Facebook post. The morning sun began to creep through the gaps in the curtains, but its warmth couldn't melt the ice in Sarah's heart. She was still sitting in the same position, staring at her phone screen, its battery now at 10%. The wedding party photo was still there, a silent witness to how foolish she had been for trusting so completely. Sarah placed her phone on the table. She didn't cry hysterically like a woman in a soap opera who had just been cheated on. Instead, her business brain, accustomed to handling crises, took control of her emotions. Sarah started doing the math. A party at the Grand Majestic Hotel, imported floral decorations, a designer dress, the diamond jewelry Carol was wearing. Sarah hummed, her finger tapping on the glass table. The total cost must be well over $100,000. It's impossible for Kevin to have that kind of cash. Their joint savings account was just drained last month for that fictional renovation of a relative's house. Sarah's brow furrowed. If it wasn't cash, then where did it come from? A payday loan? They wouldn't approve that much in such a short time. A loan from friends? Kevin's friends were all living paycheck to paycheck. Suddenly, a terrifying thought crossed her mind. Sarah's heart raced, not from sadness, but from a bad feeling about the assets she had guarded so carefully. Sarah stood up. Her steps were firm as she headed to Kevin's home office on the first floor. That room was usually a forbidden territory for Sarah. Kevin always said it was his space for inspiration and handling complex work matters, so no one was allowed to disturb him, not even Sarah. Before, Sarah had respected that privacy as a form of wifely support. But today, The word privacy no longer applied. The door was locked. Of course. Sarah didn't panic. She went to the garage, grabbed a toolbox, and returned with a flathead screwdriver. With a skill she had learned from the internet, when the bathroom lock once jammed, Sarah worked on the doorknob. It didn't take long before a click was heard. The door swung open, and the stale smell of cigarettes and neglect hit her. The room was a mess, with papers scattered on the desk and an ashtray overflowing with cigarette butts. However, Sarah's eyes were immediately drawn to one object in the corner of the room. A small steel safe embedded in the wall, hidden behind a cheap, abstract painting. That was where Kevin kept important documents, including the family's valuable papers. Sarah knew the combination, their wedding date. How ironic that Kevin was still using that date while he had just celebrated a new wedding with another woman. Sarah's fingers quickly pressed the numbers. Beep, beep, beep. The indicator light turned green. The safe door opened. Sarah held her breath as she began to inspect its contents. There were a few folders with insurance documents, birth certificates, and their marriage certificate, which she now felt like burning. But her hand reached for the very back, where a thick blue folder should have been. It was empty. Sarah pulled everything out of the safe, dropping it all onto the floor, and checked again in a panic. Nothing. The blue folder was gone. That folder contained the deed to the luxurious house they were living in. Legally, the land and the original structure were inherited from Kevin's parents. However, when they got married, the original house was old and nearly collapsing. It was Sarah who had used millions from her personal savings to tear down the old building and construct this magnificent two-story mansion. It was also Sarah who had furnished the entire place. Their verbal agreement had been that the house was a joint asset for the future of their children. Yet Kevin had always postponed putting her name on the deed, citing bureaucratic red tape. "Kevin!" Sarah hissed, her hands clenched so tightly her knuckles turned white. "Don't tell me you—" Her suspicion grew stronger. Kevin must have taken the deed, and the only reason someone would take the original deed to a house when leaving for days without contact was to use it as collateral. Sarah felt sick. This house was the fruit of her labor. How could Kevin and Carol be so cruel as to gamble away their home just for a show-off party for that mistress? Sarah had to be sure. She couldn't act on assumptions alone. She needed concrete proof. She remembered Jessica, her college friend who was now a branch manager at one of the city's leading private banks. Kevin had bragged a few times about wanting to apply for a business loan from Jessica's bank, though he was always rejected due to his poor credit history. Sarah grabbed her phone again. It was 7 a.m. Jessica would definitely be awake. The phone rang 3 times before Jessica's cheerful voice answered. "Hey, powerhouse, calling so early? Buying me breakfast?" Jessica joked. Sarah tried to control her breathing to sound normal, but the tremor of anger in her voice was hard to hide. "Jess, I need your help. It's important and urgent. It's about Kevin." There was a moment of silence on the other end, and Jessica's tone immediately turned serious. "What's wrong with your husband, Sarah? Is there a problem?" "Kevin and my mother-in-law disappeared for a week, but last night I found out they were getting married out of state. A huge, lavish party, Jess," Sarah explained quickly, getting straight to the point. "What? That's insane!" "That bastard!" Jessica shouted in shock. "Save your anger for later, Jess. I need you to check something. The deed to my house is missing from the safe. I suspect Kevin used it as collateral. You have access to run a credit check or look up collateral data across the banking network, right? Please help me find out if a Kevin Miller recently applied for a large loan in the past few months." "Oh my God, Sarah. If he really mortgaged that deed?" Jessica's voice was filled with worry. "Okay, send me Kevin's full name and social security number now. I'll check the system and contact my friends in the banking association. Give me an hour." "Thanks, Jess. I'll wait for your call." Sarah hung up. That hour felt like a century. She spent the time walking around the house. She touched the marble walls of the living room, ran her hand over the velvet sofa she had custom-ordered from overseas, and gazed at the crystal chandelier she had bought at an auction. Every corner of this house bore the mark of her hard work. She couldn't bear the thought of it all disappearing because of a spineless, ungrateful man. Exactly 50 minutes later, Sarah's phone rang. Jessica's name appeared on the screen. Sarah answered immediately. "Hello, Jess. What did you find? Jessica's voice on the other end was heavy, hesitant, and full of guilt, as if she were the one at fault. Sarah, you need to be strong for this, Jessica said softly. Sarah's heart felt like it stopped beating. Just tell me, Jess. I'm prepared for the worst. I checked. It's true. 3 months ago, a very large loan was disbursed under Kevin's name, with the deed to the house at your address as collateral. He applied at another private bank, not mine, but the data is linked because of its current status. Jessica paused. What's its status, Jess? Sarah pressed. It's in severe default, Sarah. It's been flagged as a total loss. He hasn't made a single payment since the first month, and according to the system, the bank already sent the third and final warning notice 2 weeks ago. If there's no response, they'll proceed with foreclosure. Sarah, that house, it's on the verge of being seized. Sarah's world spun. Her legs gave out, and she slumped onto the cold floor of the office. 3 months ago. That meant Kevin had been planning his wedding to Amber for a long time. He stole the deed, took the money, and ran off to enjoy it, leaving Sarah with a ticking time bomb. Thanks for the info, Jess. Sarah's voice was unnervingly cold, flat, without emotion. Sarah, are you okay? I'm coming over right now. No need, Jess. I'm fine. Better than fine, in fact, Sarah replied flatly. Her eyes stared at the empty safe with a blazing intensity. Now I know what I have to do. Sarah hung up. She didn't cry. Strangely, the pain in her heart slowly transformed into a deadly calm. The facts were in her hands. This house was no longer hers, and Kevin had destroyed everything. But Sarah wouldn't let herself be buried in the rubble alone. If this ship was going down, she would make sure she was already in a lifeboat before the water dragged everything under, and she would let the rats sink with the leaky ship they had drilled holes in themselves. Sarah stood up, straightened her clothes, and walked out of Kevin's office. All right, Kevin. Carol, Sarah muttered, looking around her luxurious home one last time with a calculating gaze. You want to play with fire? I'll provide the gasoline. The persistent ringing of the doorbell shattered Sarah's thoughts. She glanced at the wall clock. 10 a.m. Who would be visiting at this hour on a workday? Had Kevin come home early because he ran out of money? With cautious steps, Sarah walked to the front door. She peeked through the side window. On the porch stood 2 burly men in formal shirts, carrying leather briefcases and thick folders. Their faces were unfamiliar, not relatives or friends of Kevin's. Their expressions were stiff, serious, and impatient. Sarah opened the door slowly. Good morning. Can I help you? One of the men, who looked older with graying temples, nodded politely but firmly. Good morning, ma'am. Is this the residence of Mr. Kevin Miller? We're from Prosperity Bank. I'm Mr. Evans, from the Delinquent Accounts Resolution Department. Sarah's blood ran cold. The information from Jessica this morning wasn't just data on a computer screen, it was reality, now standing at her front door. Delinquent accounts. A polite term for debt collectors? Yes, this is his house, but my husband isn't here right now, Sarah answered calmly, trying to hide the tremor in her hands by gripping the doorknob tightly. Mr. Evans sighed, looking frustrated. I'm sorry, ma'am. We've tried calling Mr. Miller hundreds of times, but his number is disconnected. We've also sent the first, second, and third warning letters to this address, but there has been no response. Our visit today is the final procedure before the file is transferred to the auction house. Warning letters? Sarah interrupted, her brows knitting together. I never received any letters from your bank. Mr. Evans exchanged a look with his colleague. He then opened the thick folder he was carrying and pulled out a sheet of paper. According to our courier's report, the letters were always received by someone named Carol, and the receipts were always signed. Sarah laughed bitterly in her mind. Carol, of course. Her mother-in-law must have conspired to hide the letters so Sarah wouldn't know their mansion was being mortgaged. They thought they could run from this problem forever. May I see the file, sir? Sarah requested. Mr. Evans hesitated for a moment, but seeing Sarah's cooperative attitude, he handed over a copy of the loan agreement. Sarah's eyes scanned the pages quickly. The loan amount printed there almost made her choke. $2 million, a staggering figure. In the section for the purpose of the funds, it was written, Working Capital for Business Expansion, Miller Enterprises, LLC. What business? Kevin couldn't even tell the difference between debit and credit on a simple ledger, and what hurt more was on the last page, in the section for spousal consent, was a signature above a notary stamp with the printed name Sarah Miller. It wasn't her signature. The lines were rough and stiff, clearly an amateur forgery. Kevin had forged her signature. This crime had multiple layers: embezzlement, fraud, and forgery. 3 months ago, Sarah murmured, her eyes fixed on the date the funds were dispersed. Her mind flashed back to 3 months ago. At that time, Kevin had suddenly bought Carol a complete set of gold jewelry and was often away for business on weekends. Sarah had thought Kevin's little side hustle was finally taking off. It turned out to be money from mortgaging the roof over their heads. That $2 million must have been spent funding Carol's hedonistic lifestyle, buying a new car that was probably hidden at the mistress's place, and culminating in that grand wedding at the 5-star hotel she had just seen the photos of last night. They burned down their house for a one-night party. "Ma'am, are you all right?" Mr. Evans asked, noticing Sarah's face had turned pale. Sarah looked up at him with an unreadable expression. It wasn't a look of someone begging for mercy, but one of strange resignation. "Mr. Evans," Sarah's voice was flat, "this signature is a forgery. I never approved this loan." Mr. Evans's face tensed. "Well, if that's the case, this is a criminal matter, ma'am. But the bank's position remains strong because we have the original deed," and Mr. Evans's face. "Miller himself submitted it. If you wish to sue your husband, that's a separate civil and criminal issue. Our focus right now is this asset." "I understand," Sarah cut in quickly. "How much time do we have?" "According to procedure, since this loan is in severe default and the collateral value is starting to decline, we are giving you 3 days for voluntary vacating. If not, the eviction team will arrive next week with a court bailiff for a forced eviction and to post the auction sign. 3 days. A very short time for an ordinary person, but more than enough for Sarah, who was ready to let go of everything. "Fine, sir. Proceed as planned," Sarah replied calmly, leaving Mr. Evans stunned. "You mean you're going to pay it off?" Mr. Evans asked hopefully. Sarah smiled faintly, a smile tinged with bitterness and hidden satisfaction. "No, sir. I don't have that kind of money, and I have no intention of paying a debt for money I never enjoyed. Please proceed with the auction. Go ahead and post the foreclosure sign. If you want, you can even bulldoze it for a new project." Mr. Evans stared at Sarah as if she were a madwoman. Usually, clients would cry, beg for an extension, or get angry. But the woman before him was practically inviting them to take her luxurious home. "But, ma'am, this is a mansion. It would be a shame to auction it off for cheap." Mr. Evans tried to negotiate, confused by the situation. "That's your business with my husband, Kevin. He's the one who took the loan. He should be the one worrying. I'm just a guest here." Sarah handed the file back. "You can come back in 3 days. I guarantee this house will be empty of all valuables." After Mr. Evans left with a look of utter confusion, Sarah closed the door. She leaned against it, taking a long, deep breath. Kevin and Carol were scheduled to return in 5 days, after their honeymoon. That meant when they arrived at the gate, this house would no longer be theirs. A bright red sign reading, "This property is under bank seizure," would be the grandest welcome they could receive. But Sarah wouldn't stop there. Letting the bank seize the house was painful for Kevin, but it wasn't enough. Sarah remembered Mr. Evans's words. It would be a shame to auction it off for cheap. Sarah's business mind started spinning again. If the house was auctioned, the price would usually be low. A major property developer would surely be interested because the land's location was highly strategic, right on the main road of an elite neighborhood. Sarah picked up her phone and searched for an old contact. Not a lawyer, not the police, but Mr. Daniels, a senior property developer who had once been her business mentor. Mr. Daniels was looking for land for an apartment complex expansion. "Hello, Mr. Daniels. It's Sarah," she said when the call connected. "Sir, are you still looking for land in the Beverly Hills area? I have a prime lot, spacious, ready to build. But there's one condition, sir. The building has to be leveled as soon as the deal is closed. I want the land wiped clean, flat to the ground, without a single piece of rubble left." On the other end of the line, an enthusiastic voice responded. Sarah listened intently, a mysterious smile playing on her lips. "Yes, sir. I can help you win the auction through an inside track at the bank. I know the branch manager. But I ask for one thing. Make sure your heavy machinery is on site exactly 5 days from now." Sarah ended the call. She looked around the living room, filled with false memories. "You want to live in luxury at my expense?" Sarah whispered to a framed wedding photo of her and Kevin on the wall. "All right. I'll make sure you have no place to come home to, not even a spot to leave your sandals." Sarah's first step of revenge began now. Asset evacuation. She wouldn't leave a single spoon for Kevin, Carol, or Amber. The cars, the jewelry, the designer clothes she had bought for Kevin, the electronics, the sofas, even the expensive curtains, all of it was bought with Sarah's money, and she would take it all. Sarah immediately called a professional moving company. "Hello, I need 3 large trucks and a crew of 10 packers right now. Yes, a total move-out. This house needs to be completely empty before sunset tomorrow." The sound of packing tape being pulled and cardboard boxes being stacked became the only music filling the luxurious house all day. 3 large yellow moving trucks were parked in the front yard, making some of the neighbors peek curiously from behind their fences. But Sarah didn't care. She stood in the middle of the living room like a war general, holding an inventory list, giving firm instructions to the 10-person crew working at lightning speed. "Be careful with that leather sofa. Don't scratch it. Wrap it in 3 layers of bubble wrap," Sarah commanded, pointing to the imported Chesterfield sofa she had bought for tens of thousands of dollars. "Yes, ma'am," the crew leader replied. "That glass cabinet in the corner, empty it first. Put all those Swarovski crystals into the special padded boxes. Not a single one should be cracked," she continued. Sarah wasn't joking. She was conducting a total purge. Following her own version of law and justice, she only took what was bought with her own money. Unfortunately for Kevin, that was nearly 99% of the house's contents. From the 65-inch flat-screen TV in the family room, the high-end sound system, the double-door refrigerator, the washing machine, to the silk curtains hanging majestically in the windows, everything was hauled away. Sarah even ordered the crew to uninstall the air conditioning units in every room. She wouldn't let those traders enjoy the cool, comfortable air. When Sarah entered the master bedroom, the room that had once been the silent witness to her marriage with Kevin, she felt a pang of pain in her chest. But that pain quickly vanished when she saw Kevin's open closet. Work clothes, suits, and designer shoes were lined up neatly. Sarah smiled cynically. She had bought all of it. "Sir, please pack up everything in this closet. Put it in a box labeled donation," Sarah said coldly to one of the workers. "Except for those old, holey t-shirts and worn-out shorts, leave those on the floor." In the guest room occupied by Carol, Sarah was even more ruthless. She ordered the workers to take the 5-star hotel-quality spring bed she had bought specifically so her mother-in-law's back wouldn't hurt. In its place, Sarah left the old, creaky, termite-infested wooden bed frame that was Carol's original bed from her hometown. "Let her experience some nostalgia," Sarah muttered as she closed the door. In the midst of the chaos, Sarah's phone vibrated in her jeans pocket. My husband appeared on the screen. Sarah stared at it blankly. It was the 5th call that day. She had deliberately ignored the previous ones. But if she kept silent, Kevin might get suspicious and come home early, ruining her grand plan. Sarah took a deep breath, composed her voice to sound normal, and answered the call. "Hello, honey," Sarah said flatly. "Sarah, where have you been? I've been calling since this morning and you haven't picked up." Kevin's annoyed voice came from the other end, accompanied by the sound of crashing waves and relaxing music. They were clearly at a beach resort. "Sorry, honey. I've been busy cleaning the house. My phone was on silent in the bedroom," Sarah lied smoothly, cleaning in the truest sense of the word. "Oh, okay. Well, don't work too hard. Remember to take care of your health so you can keep working," Kevin said with a tone of fake concern that made Sarah's stomach churn. "I just wanted to let you know, my mom and I might be home a little late. We'll probably get back the day after tomorrow. The property stuff here is more complicated than we thought. I have to keep going back and forth to the lawyer's office." Sarah held back a bitter laugh. The lawyer's office or a hotel room? Kevin's lies sounded so ridiculous now that she knew everything. "Oh, is that so, honey? That's fine. Just take your time and finish everything. Enjoy yourselves," Sarah replied, her words laced with double meaning. "Yeah, and my mom says hi. She said don't forget to water her favorite orchids morning and evening. She'll be furious if they die. They were expensive." Sarah glanced toward the side patio. The pots of moon orchids from Carol's collection, which were, of course, bought with Sarah's money, were already loaded onto the second truck. "Don't worry, honey. I've taken good care of your mom's plants. They're exactly where they should be now," Sarah answered calmly. "Good. You're such a dependable wife. Anyway, I have to get back to a meeting with the local attorney. Talk to you later. Bye." "Bye." The call ended. Sarah imagined Kevin's smug face, feeling triumphant for having successfully deceived the wife he thought was a fool. He was probably laughing about it with Amber, bragging about how easy it was to control the situation. "Enjoy your laugh now, Kevin," Sarah thought, "because the day after tomorrow, you'll forget how to smile." By late afternoon, the house was transformed. The luxury was gone, the comfort erased. The marble floors were now bare and dirty with the footprints of the moving crew. The walls were stark and empty, leaving lighter rectangular patches where paintings used to hang. The echo of footsteps resounded in every room, a testament to its emptiness. All that remained were junk items: a wobbly-legged dining table inherited from Kevin's father, a broken plastic chair in the kitchen, stacks of old magazines, and other useless trash. Sarah had even taken all the decorative light fixtures, replacing them with dim 5-watt bulbs that cast a sad, gloomy light. "Everything's on the trucks, ma'am. Should we head to the apartment now?" the crew leader asked, wiping sweat from his brow. "Yes, you go ahead. I'll lock up here," Sarah replied. After the trucks rumbled away, Sarah stood alone in the dark living room. She felt an incredible sense of relief. A heavy burden seemed to have lifted from her shoulders, along with those belongings. This was no longer her home. It was just an empty, ownerless building awaiting its death sentence. Sarah pulled a white envelope from her purse. Inside were the divorce papers she had already signed. She placed the envelope on the floor, right in the center of the room, the only clean object in the place. "A welcome home gift," she whispered. She stepped outside, pulling the front door closed. She intentionally left the broken lock as it was, so the bank would have no trouble getting in the next day. Sarah walked to her car, a sleek black SUV she had bought under her company's name, making it safe from seizure. As she started the engine, an Instagram notification popped up. Amber's account, which was public, had posted a new story. A boomerang video of the three of them, Kevin, Carol, and Amber, clinking glasses of orange juice by a luxurious swimming pool. Carol's face was beaming, as if she had just won the lottery. The caption read, "Family time before we move into the new palace." Sarah smirked. "New palace? You mean a homeless shelter?" She pressed the gas pedal, speeding away from the house of memories without a single glance back. Her destination was now a penthouse apartment in the city center she had just leased for a year, her new sanctuary, a place where she would watch the spectacle of Kevin's downfall from a VIP seat. Meanwhile, the time bomb continued to tick. Tomorrow, Mr. Daniels and the bank's auction team would make their move. And the day after that, the real drama would begin. Silence is golden, Sarah thought. But revenge prepared in silence is a diamond, hard, sharp, and unbreakable. The morning sun streamed through the glass walls of the 25th floor penthouse apartment, greeting Sarah as she enjoyed a cup of black coffee. The view of the Los Angeles skyline from this height seemed small and serene, a stark contrast to the storm she was orchestrating down below. This was Sarah's first morning in her new place. There were no more shouts from Carol complaining about the food being bland, no more piles of Kevin's dirty clothes scattered on the floor. There was only an expensive, well-earned peace. Her phone on the table vibrated. Mr. Evans from the bank. "Hello. Good morning, Mr. Evans." Sarah greeted him casually, as if talking to an old friend. "Good morning, Miss Miller. Sorry to bother you." Mr. Evans's voice was more respectful than during their first meeting. "I just wanted to give you an update on the asset in Beverly Hills." Sarah slowly put down her coffee cup. "Please, go ahead. What's the latest?" "Just as you anticipated, the foreclosure auction process moved very quickly. Because you were so cooperative, handed over the keys, and vacated the premises without resistance, the bank was able to process it as a quick liquidation asset. And the good news, or perhaps bad news for your husband, is that a winner was declared this morning. Who was the winner, sir? Sarah asked, though she already knew the answer. Daniels Properties Incorporated. They settled the payment in full, cash, today. They were very aggressive because they needed the land immediately for an access road to their new apartment complex behind the neighborhood, Mr. Evans explained. Sarah smiled faintly. Mr. Daniels was a true businessman. He wasted no time. And what about my husband's remaining debt? She asked, merely curious to know how deep a grave Kevin had dug for himself. Mr. Evans seemed to be shuffling papers. The auction price for the asset was quite low due to the quick sale status and the fact that only the land was valued, not the building. The proceeds from the sale were just enough to cover the principal debt, the accrued interest, and the hefty late fees. The surplus was almost zero, ma'am. In fact, Mr. Miller still owes some administrative fees for the auction, which he will be personally responsible for. Excellent, Sarah murmured softly, meaning he's back to square one. Pardon me, ma'am? Oh, nothing, sir. Thank you for the information. So, when is the physical handover? Today. The legal team from Daniels Properties will be taking possession. They mentioned their heavy machinery is already on standby at a nearby warehouse. They don't want any delays since their construction permits have been approved, so it's very likely the demolition will begin early tomorrow morning. Thank you, Mr. Evans. You've been very professional, Sarah concluded. The call ended. Sarah walked back to the massive glass window. Tomorrow morning, exactly 1 day before Kevin and his new family were scheduled to return. The timing was perfect. That afternoon, Sarah decided to meet Mr. Daniels at his sales office, not far from her old house. She needed to confirm one important detail. Mr. Daniels, a middle-aged man always impeccably dressed in a silk shirt, greeted Sarah with a wide laugh. "Sarah, my brightest protégée," he exclaimed, shaking her hand warmly. "You truly handed me gold. I've had my eye on that land for 5 years, but your mother-in-law always quoted an absurd price. Now I've got it at a massive discount from the bank." Sarah smiled politely. "It's a win-win, sir. You get cheap land, and I get peace of mind." Mr. Daniels's face grew a little more serious, looking at Sarah with curiosity. "But I'm still baffled, Sarah. That was your house too, wasn't it? You built it, you designed it. Why would you ask me to level it so quickly? It's a shame, you know. That marble was expensive." Sarah looked straight into Mr. Daniels's eyes. There was not a hint of doubt in her dark gaze. "That house was tainted, sir. Its foundation was built on sacred vows, but its roof sheltered betrayal. I don't want any memories left. Besides, you need the land cleared for your access road, right? If the building were still there, your permitting process would take longer." Mr. Daniels nodded, understanding that there was a deep wound behind her cold business decision. "All right, I won't pry any further into your personal affairs. As you requested, my construction team will start work tomorrow at 7 a.m. sharp. I'm deploying 2 excavators. My target is to have it all flat by the afternoon. One more thing, sir," Sarah added. "Could you please have a word with the neighborhood security guard? If the old owner shows up, just have him treat them like strangers." "Done. The security guard, Mike, is practically my employee now. He knows who his new boss is." After the meeting, Sarah felt relieved. All the chess pieces were in place. The arrogant king and queen were about to be checkmated. That evening, Sarah stopped by an electronics store. She bought a portable, battery-powered security camera that could connect to her phone. She then drove to her old neighborhood. The area was quiet. Her luxurious house, or rather the empty shell, stood grimly without any lights. A large red sticker from the bank was plastered on the front gate. "This asset is under bank possession." Next to it was an even larger new banner from Daniels Properties Incorporated. "This land is the property of Daniels Properties, Inc. Trespassing is prohibited." Sarah didn't go inside. She parked her car across the street near the empty security post. Swiftly, she hid the small camera in the dense branches of a leafy tree that had a direct view of the gate. "I don't want to miss the look on your faces," she whispered, activating the camera's connection to her phone. The image on the screen was crystal clear. Just as she was about to leave, her phone buzzed again. A text from Kevin. A selfie of him and Carol on an airplane. Their faces looked tired but happy. "Hey babe. We've boarded but have a layover in Chicago overnight. An old family friend of my mom's wants to see us. So we'll be home the day after tomorrow, around noon. Don't forget to make Mom's favorite pot roast. We miss home cooking." Sarah read the message with disgust. "Pot roast," she scoffed. "You think you're coming home to a 5-star restaurant?" She typed a short reply, ensuring the charade continued until the very last second. "Okay, honey. Safe travels. I'll prepare a special surprise for you both." Sarah wasn't lying. It was indeed a surprise. A surprise that would make their knees buckle and their hearts stop. That night, in her new apartment, Sarah slept soundly for the first time in a week. She couldn't wait for sunrise. Tomorrow, the roar of bulldozers would be the most beautiful music she had ever heard, the destruction of the past to build a new future. And Kevin, he was still flying high, completely unaware that the runway where he was about to land no longer existed. The morning sun had yet to fully warm the earth, but the roar of diesel engines had already shattered the silence of the neighborhood. The clock on Sarah's dashboard read 6:45 a.m. She parked her car a good distance from her old home, shielded by the shadow of a large tree, but positioned perfectly to watch the morning's performance. Her car's dark tinted windows completely concealed her presence. 2 bright yellow excavators, monstrous machines of destruction, were already parked in front of the house's gate. Several workers in orange vests, bearing the Daniels Properties Incorporated, a logo, were busy setting up a safety perimeter to keep onlookers away. Mike, the security guard, was directing the morning traffic, occasionally answering questions from curious neighbors. "What are they doing to Mr. Miller's house?" a woman on her morning jog asked. "It's been sold, ma'am, to a developer. They're tearing it down to make a new road," Mike answered loudly, sticking to the script Mr. Daniels had given him. "Where's Mr. Miller?" "I haven't seen him." "I wouldn't know, ma'am." "Heard they moved." "Rich people, you know, they have lots of houses," Mike quipped with a small laugh. Sarah smiled from inside her car, hearing his clever response. At exactly 7 a.m., the heavy machinery operators began to move the controls. A giant metal arm lifted high into the air, as if stretching its muscles before striking its prey. Crack! The first blow landed squarely on the white pillar of the concrete fence that Carol used to boast about. The pillar crumbled like a cracker, sending a cloud of cement dust into the air. The thunderous sound of the wall collapsing made Sarah's heart skip a beat. There was a twinge of pain, but it was overshadowed by a much greater sense of satisfaction. That fence had been the boundary that had imprisoned her in a life of lies. The excavator moved forward, its massive tracks crushing the flower garden that Sarah had once tended with so much love. Roses, jasmine, and the remaining orchids were all obliterated, buried under the churned-up red earth. The metal arm now turned toward the main building. Its first target was the balcony of the master bedroom on the second floor, the place where Kevin often stood smoking, looking down on the people passing by. Boom! The excavator's bucket smashed into the glass wall of the balcony. Shards of glass flew everywhere, glittering in the sunlight like a shower of sharp crystals. The brick wall behind it collapsed next, revealing the now exposed interior of the bedroom. Sarah could see the remnants of the classic patterned wallpaper she had chosen herself, now torn and shredded. Sarah didn't close her eyes. She took a picture of the moment with her phone, not as a memento, but as proof that she had won this war. "Goodbye, room full of lies," she whispered. The operators worked with brutal efficiency. Within an hour, half of the second floor had collapsed. Roof tiles rained down one by one, creating a deafening racket. A thick cloud of dust rose high, obscuring the view for a moment before the morning breeze swept it away. Neighbors began to gather, whispering and recording with their phones. Sarah was sure the video of her house being leveled would soon spread through the neighborhood WhatsApp group, and that was good. The more witnesses, the more humiliation for Kevin later. By noon, it was the first floor's turn. The living room where Carol often showed off her handbags to her bridge club friends was now utterly destroyed. Piles of concrete rubble were everywhere. The exposed steel rebar looked like the skeletal remains of a dead monster. Sarah saw Mr. Daniels arrived for a brief inspection. He pointed at something, giving instructions to the workers to clear the debris faster. Dump trucks began to line up, ready to haul the remains of Kevin's palace to the landfill. Sarah felt a strange sensation. She had once worked day and night to build those walls. She had saved money, denying herself luxuries to afford the best cement, the most expensive paint, and the most beautiful tiles. But today, she was the director behind its destruction. It takes years to build, but only half a day to destroy, Sarah mused. Just like trust, built over years, shattered by a single photo on a Facebook post. By 3 p.m., the job was done. The magnificent 2-story mansion was gone without a trace. All that remained was a vast, flat expanse of red earth, completely level as far as the eye could see. No more pillars, no more roof, no more walls. It was truly back to square one, like a dirty, blank sheet of paper. The workers began packing up their tools. The excavators were parked in a corner of the lot. The Daniels Properties Incorporated caution tape was reinstalled around the perimeter. Sarah started her car. The cold air from the AC couldn't combat the chill she felt looking at that empty lot. She felt empty, but also free. Before leaving, she checked the security camera app on her phone. The camera she had hidden in the tree was still active and recording clearly. Its position was perfect, aimed directly at the entrance area where a gate no longer stood. "Okay, the stage is set," Sarah said to herself. She glanced at the time. There were still 24 hours before Kevin's flight landed tomorrow afternoon. Sarah decided to treat herself. She drove to her favorite salon for a full spa day, a deep conditioning treatment, and a manicure. She wanted to look her best tomorrow. She wanted to be radiant, a stark contrast to the haggard, desperate faces her husband and mother-in-law would surely be wearing. At the salon, as the stylist massaged her scalp, Sarah idly opened Instagram. She looked up Amber's account again. And just as she expected, there was a new post. A photo of first-class plane tickets to Los Angeles for tomorrow afternoon. The caption read, "Bye-bye vacation. Back to reality. Ready to move into our dream house with my darling husband." Sarah almost burst out laughing, startling the stylist. "Is something funny, Miss Sarah?" the stylist asked. "Oh, no. Just reading a short joke. It's hilarious. The ending is totally unexpected," Sarah replied with a mysterious smile. "Dream house," Sarah repeated Amber's words in her mind. "Yes, your dream will remain just that, Amber. Because when you wake up tomorrow, the reality will be a graveyard for your greed." After the salon, Sarah stopped at a boutique. She bought an elegant, knee-length maroon dress, black stiletto heels, and oversized sunglasses. This was her battle uniform for tomorrow. She wouldn't appear as a pitiful victim. She would appear as a victor, standing tall on the ruins of her enemy's defeat. That night in her apartment, Sarah sat on the balcony, looking up at the LA sky. The stars were hidden by the city smog, but to Sarah, the night felt bright. She imagined tomorrow's scenario. What would Carol's expression be when she saw the empty land? How would Kevin's face look when he realized he had no key to get in because the door itself was gone? And how would Amber react when she realized she had married a bankrupt fraud? Sarah sipped her warm tea. "Tomorrow is going to be a long day, Kevin. I hope your heart is strong enough." She went to her room and slept early. She needed all her energy to face the final act of her domestic drama. A drama whose script was written by Kevin's betrayal, but whose ending was directed by Sarah's intelligence. The plane landed smoothly at LAX right at noon. In the arrivals terminal, Kevin strutted with his chest puffed out, pushing a luggage cart like a celebrity returning from a world tour. Behind him, Carol walked with a slight limp, but her face was beaming as she held onto the arm of Amber, who was dressed ostentatiously in oversized sunglasses and a wide-brimmed sun hat, as if Los Angeles were a tropical island. "Ugh, it's so hot in LA. So different from the air at our villa," Amber complained in a deliberately whiny tone, fanning her heavily made-up face. "Patience, sweetheart. As soon as we get home, it'll be nice and cool. The AC in the master bedroom is as cold as the Arctic. I had a special high-powered unit installed just for us," Kevin replied, winking at her. He reached into his pocket to order a premium Uber, but his ego got the better of him. He didn't want to bring his new wife home in a regular car. "Let's just get a black car service, Kevin. An Escalade. Let the neighbors see us arrive in style," Carol suggested. Kevin agreed immediately, without a second thought about his maxed-out credit cards. Half an hour later, a gleaming black Cadillac Escalade picked them up. A uniformed driver opened the door, and they settled into the cool, leather-scented cabin. Kevin sat in the front passenger seat to look like a boss, while Carol and Amber sat comfortably in the back. Throughout the drive to Beverly Hills, their laughter never ceased. They talked about how successful the wedding was, how jealous Kevin's old friends were of Amber's beauty, and of course, their favorite topic, the plan to get rid of Sarah. "So, Carol, when we get to the house, is that Sarah person still going to be there?" Amber asked, adjusting a gold ring on her finger, a ring bought with the last of the bank loan money. Carol snorted. "She's probably busy in the kitchen, making that pot roast I ordered. She's such a good little servant. But don't you worry, Amber. You'll be the lady of the house. You won't have to touch a broom or a mop. We'll make Sarah do all the work before we kick her out." Kevin chuckled from the front seat. "Don't worry, honey. I've got it all planned. As soon as we arrive, I'm telling her it's over. I'll give her 1 hour to pack up her ugly clothes, and then she's out. The house is in my parents' name, so she has no legal right to anything." "That's right, Kevin," Carol chimed in fiercely. "A barren woman like her has no right to live in a mansion. She was lucky I let her stay this long, and she's gotten so entitled. Last month, I asked for some money for my bridge club, and she only gave me $500. So stingy. Not like Amber, right? Just yesterday she bought me a new handbag." Amber smiled proudly, resting her head on Carol's shoulder. "Of course, Mom. I love you. When I'm in charge of the household finances, you can have anything you want. We can go shopping every week, have spa days together. We're going to live the good life. See, Kevin? This is how a wife should be. She should honor her mother-in-law. Not like Sarah, who's always pretending to be busy with work, coming home late, and who knows where her money goes," Carol sneered. Deep down, they knew exactly where Sarah's money went. It paid for the mortgage, the utilities, and their own extravagant lifestyles. But greed had blinded them. They had forgotten that the luxury they were enjoying was as fragile as a soap bubble. The car navigated through the LA traffic. Kevin felt on top of the world. He pictured Sarah's shocked face. He imagined her crying, kneeling at his feet, begging him not to leave her. The fantasy made the smile on his lips grow wider. He felt like the most powerful man alive. "Driver, can you step on it? My wife and mother are eager to rest on their soft beds," Kevin commanded arrogantly. "Yes, sir," the driver replied curtly. As the car entered the Beverly Hills neighborhood, Amber's heart pounded with excitement. Kevin had often described his luxurious home, the Italian marble floors, the crystal chandeliers, the beautiful koi pond, and the spacious walk-in closet. Amber was already planning to throw out all of Sarah's clothes and replace them with her own new collection. "Turn left here, driver." "Through the gate with the security post," Kevin directed, pointing the way. Mike, the security guard on duty, saw the Escalade approach. He recognized Kevin's face through the windshield. But instead of his usual respectful nod, Mike just smirked and let the gate arm rise without a word. Kevin, who considered himself a king in this neighborhood, frowned. "That's weird. Mike is usually so polite, so disrespectful. I'll report him to the homeowners association and have him fired," Kevin grumbled. "Oh, forget the guard, honey. I can't wait to see the house," Amber whined. The car moved slowly down the lush, tree-lined street. Massive mansions stood on either side. "There it is, our block. Number 88, the one with the tallest white fence and the European-style pillars," Kevin said proudly, pointing toward the end of the street. Carol sat up straighter, preparing her most condescending expression to greet Sarah. "Remember, Kevin, no weakness. If she cries, don't feel sorry for her, just kick her out. I'm sick of looking at her self-righteous face." "Done, Mom. Don't worry." The car drew closer. 50 yards, 30 yards. But something was wrong. Kevin narrowed his eyes. He was looking for the tall white fence that marked his home. But as far as he could see, there was only the neighbor's house on the left, the neighbor's house on the right, and a vast, empty space in between. "Huh, why is it so bright?" Kevin mumbled, confused. Usually, the large magnolia tree in his front yard blocked the view. But now he could see straight through to the back wall of the neighborhood. "Kevin, which house is it?" "You said a white fence," Amber asked, her head darting from side to side. Kevin started to panic. He sat up straight. "It should be right there, next to the councilman's house." The Escalade slowed to a crawl and finally stopped in front of the designated address, 88 Hillcrest Drive. The driver turned around, looking confused. "Sorry, sir. According to the GPS, this is the location. But this is an empty lot." Silence. A chilling silence filled the car. The cheerful laughter that had filled the cabin moments before vanished, replaced by the soft hum of the air conditioner. Kevin's eyes bulged, nearly popping out of their sockets. Carol's mouth hung wide open, as if her jaw had become unhinged. Amber was frozen, her sunglasses sliding down her nose. Before them, there was no white fence, no two-story building, no glass balcony, no garage, no flower garden. There was only a flat, packed, and clean expanse of red earth, completely leveled to the ground. Not a single brick was left standing. There was only yellow caution tape fluttering in the wind and a large sign stuck firmly in the middle of the lot. "This land is the property of Daniels Properties, Inc. Trespassing is prohibited." This can't be." Kevin's voice was caught in his throat, as if he were choking. His face, which had been flushed with arrogance, was now deathly pale. Carol rubbed her eyes again and again, hoping this was just a hallucination from jet lag, but the view remained the same. Her pride and joy, her palace, the place where she kept all her valuables, had vanished from the face of the earth. "My house," Carol whispered, her voice trembling violently. "Where is my house?" Carol's hysterical scream shattered the afternoon silence, but there were no walls to echo her voice. Only the empty wind answered the homecoming of the dethroned king and queen. The door of the Escalade opened slowly. Kevin got out with staggering steps, as if the bones had just been removed from his legs. His eyes were glazed over as he stared at the expanse of red earth before him. He blinked once, twice, hoping the scene would change back into a magnificent two-story mansion. But it was no use. The reality before him was too stark to deny. "This is impossible. Impossible," Kevin muttered, sounding delirious. He pulled out his phone, checking the map app. The GPS dot confirmed his location, home. Carol couldn't hold back any longer. She burst out of the car, not caring that her expensive dress was dragging on the asphalt. She ran onto the empty lot, her feet sinking into the soft red dirt left by the excavators. "My house! Where is my house?" she shrieked hysterically. She spun around in the middle of the lot like a madwoman, clawing at the dirt as if she hoped her house was just buried underneath. "My wardrobe, my gold, my cash savings under the mattress. Where is it all? Who would steal an entire house?" Amber got out of the car, her face a mess of confusion and fear. Her perfect makeup was starting to run with cold sweat. She looked down at her high heels, now stained with red dirt. "Kevin!" Amber snapped, her voice high-pitched and shrill. "What is the meaning of this? You said we were coming home to a palace. Why did you bring me to a dirt field? Where is the mansion you promised me?" Kevin didn't answer. He walked toward the remains of the demolished fence wall. There, stuck to the concrete, was a sticker he recognized all too well, one he had always avoided looking at. The logo of the bank where he had mortgaged the deed. Kevin's blood ran cold. He remembered 3 months ago, when he had recklessly stolen the deed from Sarah's safe. He thought he had time. He thought he could use the loan money for a quick business flip, then slowly pay off the installments without Sarah knowing. He thought the bank was just bluffing. He never imagined they would act so brutally, seizing and leveling the property in the week he was gone. "Sarah," Kevin hissed. Her name surfaced in his mind. Sarah must have known. She wouldn't just stand by and let her house be destroyed. Meanwhile, Carol had collapsed onto the ground, sobbing and beating her chest. Neighbors started coming out of their houses. Some recorded the scene from their second-story windows. Free entertainment, the newly rich returning as hobos. "Mom, get up. People are watching." Kevin tried to pull his mother's arm. "Kevin, where is our house? Where is it?" Carol grabbed the collar of Kevin's shirt, shaking him. "You said everything was fine. You said the money came through without any problems. Why did this happen? Where are we going to sleep tonight, Kevin? I don't know, Mom. I'm just as confused as you are, Kevin snapped, panic taking over. Hearing their exchange, Amber took a step back. Her expression shifted from confusion to suspicion. Wait a minute. Money came through? A problem? Kevin, you be honest with me. Whose house was this, really? And why is it a pile of dirt? Before Kevin could answer, a man in a security uniform approached them. It was Mike. He had always bowed respectfully to Kevin before, but today his chin was held high. Good afternoon, Mr. Miller. Mrs. Miller, Mike said without a smile. Mike, where have you been? Why is my house destroyed? You just stood by and did nothing? Kevin yelled, taking his anger out on someone he considered beneath him. Who dared to demolish my house? Call the police, now! Mike let out a small, contemptuous laugh. Sir, are you behind on the news or just pretending to forget? This isn't your house anymore. This is the legal property of my new boss, Daniels Properties Incorporated. They bought it fair and square from the bank auction yesterday afternoon. Auction? Carol and Amber shrieked in unison. Yes, ma'am. Something about a total loan default. The new owner wanted the land cleared immediately, so, well, it was leveled. By the way, Mr. Miller and family, please exit the area immediately. This is private property. If you remain here, I'll be forced to call the project security team to have you removed. Kevin felt as if he had been slapped repeatedly. His pride was shattered in front of his new wife. You're kicking me out? Mike, I've lived here for years. You used to live here, sir. Now you're an uninvited guest, Mike replied coldly. Please leave before I call the police for trespassing. Behind them, the driver of the Escalade honked the horn. Hey, sir, ma'am, what's the deal? My rental time is almost up. If you want to extend, there's an overtime fee. And please settle the bill now. I'm not taking any chances here, the driver shouted, realizing his passengers were in trouble. Kevin fumbled in his wallet. His credit cards were maxed out. His cash was gone, spent on souvenirs. He looked at Amber. Honey, do you have any cash on you to pay the driver? He asked with a pleading look. Amber stared at him in disbelief. Her eyes swept over the pathetic scene. A husband who was a fraud, a materialistic mother-in-law now rolling in the dirt, and a dream house that was a fiction. You're asking me for money? She hissed. You told me you were rich. You said you were a successful businessman. Turns out you're just a bum whose house got repossessed. That's not it, sweetheart. This is just a misunderstanding. I can explain. Don't bother explaining. Amber cut her off sharply. She opened her expensive purse, took out her wallet, and threw a few $100 bills at the driver. Here's your payment. Get my luggage out now. I'm not sharing a car with this con artist. Amber, where are you going? Carol tried to get up, her dirty hand reaching for Amber's dress. Don't touch me, Amber snapped, recoiling in disgust. You're a liar too, you old hag. You two are just alike. You tricked me into marrying him, but you're both broke. Amber yanked her suitcase away and stormed off toward the neighborhood gate to find another ride, leaving Kevin and Carol frozen on the empty lot. The scorching afternoon sun burned their skin, but the shame burned far hotter. In the midst of his despair, Kevin's phone rang. It was the special ringtone he had set for Sarah. He stared at the screen. My wife, Sarah, was flashing. That name used to mean a source of money. Now, it felt like a judge about to bring down the gavel. With a violently trembling hand, Kevin answered the call. Hello, Kevin. It was Sarah's voice, clear, calm, and bone-chillingly cold. Did you get home okay? How do you like the surprise? Do you like the new open-concept renovation? Kevin's blood boiled. Sarah, what did you do to my house? Your house? Sarah laughed on the other end. A small correction, Kevin. It was the bank's land, and now it's Mr. Daniels's land. You have nothing left. Oh, and by the way, I donated all your worthless belongings. Enjoy your new life on the streets, darling. Click. The line went dead. Kevin's hand dropped. His knees buckled. He collapsed next to his still-crying mother. The two of them sat there, defeated, on the red earth under the blazing Los Angeles sun, watched by their neighbors and broadcast live by a hidden security camera to Sarah, who was enjoying a manicure in her luxurious apartment. This wasn't just about losing money, this was total annihilation. And they were just beginning to realize this was only the start of their nightmare. "Sir, ma'am, you need to leave this area now. We need to park the heavy machinery in the center. You don't want to get your foot run over by the tracks." "I won't be responsible," Mike warned again, this time more sternly, pointing to an excavator that was starting to roar back to life. Kevin had no choice. With what little energy and dignity he had left, he dragged his heavy suitcase. The wheels rattled on the hot asphalt, a heart-wrenching sound for someone who had just lost everything. Carol followed behind him, hobbling barefoot because one of her heels had broken when she had her tantrum in the dirt. "Where are we going, Kevin?" "I'm thirsty. I'm tired," Carol whined. Her face was smudged with a mixture of dirt, tears, and melted makeup. She looked more like a high-class beggar than a grand dame. "To Sarah's office," Kevin answered, his jaw clenched. "That woman has to take responsibility. She must have deliberately let this happen. She thinks she can just walk away after destroying my life. Not a chance. I'm still her legal husband. Her assets are my assets." They flagged down a passing taxi. Kevin had to dig deep into his suit pocket to find enough change to cover the fare to Sarah's catering business, which wasn't too far away. During the ride, Kevin rehearsed his angry speech. He would sue Sarah. He would humiliate her in front of her employees. He would force her to buy them a new house, or at least rent them a luxury apartment today. The taxi stopped in front of a well-maintained, 3-story commercial building. A large sign, "Sarah's Kitchen, Catering and Event Planning," was displayed prominently. Clean company vans were parked neatly in the lot, a stark contrast to Kevin's current state. He dragged his suitcase inside, kicking the glass door open. The receptionist, who was on the phone, jumped in shock. "Where is Sarah? Get your boss out here now!" Kevin screamed, his voice echoing through the lobby. Several employees packing meal boxes turned to look. They recognized Kevin, their boss's husband, who was rarely seen unless he was asking for money. They were stunned by his disheveled and sweaty appearance. "I'm sorry, Mr. Miller, but Miss Sarah is with a client," the receptionist stammered, intimidated. "I don't care. I'm her husband." Kevin stormed past her and headed for the stairs to the second floor, with Carol trailing behind, complaining about her sore feet. But Kevin's ascent was halted at the top of the stairs. On the second-floor landing stood Sarah. She looked composed, elegant, and powerful. She wore the form-fitting maroon dress. Her hair was styled in a neat bun, and her face was glowing with health. She looked down at Kevin and Carol from above, exactly like a queen observing rebellious commoners. "There's no need to shout, Kevin. This is a place of business, not a jungle," Sarah said coldly. "You ungrateful wife!" Carol shrieked from behind Kevin. "Look at this. My house is gone, leveled to the ground. You knew this was happening, and you did nothing. You must have conspired with the bank to set us up." Kevin took a step forward, pointing a finger at Sarah's face. "You are going to pay for this, Sarah. You have money, right? Rent us a hotel room now and transfer us some money for food. All my credit cards are declined because you didn't pay the bill this month." Sarah laughed. It was a dry, piercing laugh. She descended the stairs one by one, the sound of her stilettos clicking with intimidating rhythm. "Pay for what?" she repeated. She stopped 2 steps in front of Kevin, looking him straight in the eye without a trace of fear. "On what grounds do I owe you anything? The house was in your late father's name. The debt is in your name. You were the one who signed the loan agreement. You were the one who used the money to party and marry someone else. So where, exactly, is my responsibility in all of this?" "You're my wife! Our assets are community property," Kevin yelled. "Wrong," Sarah cut in sharply. "Premarital assets and income earned and kept in separate accounts are not community property, especially when you have committed a felony." Sarah raised her right hand, which was holding a yellow folder. She tossed it at Kevin's chest. "Read it." Kevin fumbled to catch it. His hands trembled as he opened it. Inside were not cash, but 2 important documents. The first was a petition for divorce. The second was a forensic signature analysis report. Kevin's eyes widened as he read the second document. It contained proof from a criminal forensics lab stating that the signature of Sarah Miller on the Prosperity Bank loan agreement was non-identical, in other words, a forgery. Kevin's face, which had been red with rage, turned as white as a sheet. Cold sweat beaded on his temples. "You thought I would just sit back and do nothing when I found the deed missing?" Sarah whispered, leaning in slightly. "I hired a lawyer the day you left. We've been gathering evidence. You forged my signature to mortgage that house. That's a violation of federal law, Kevin. The prison sentence is up to 10 years. Kevin's knees went weak. The threat of prison was far more terrifying than being homeless. Carol, who didn't understand the law but understood Sarah's tone, began to panic. "What does this mean, Sarah? Don't you dare threaten your husband. You want to send Kevin to jail?" "Not me, Carol." "The law?" Sarah replied coolly, crossing her arms. "The bank might be satisfied now that they've sold the asset. But if I report this forgery to the police, Kevin won't be sleeping in a hotel. He'll be sleeping in a rat-infested cell." Kevin dropped the folder. His arrogance completely crumbled. He realized one thing. Sarah held the ace that could end his life as he knew it. "Sarah," Kevin's voice turned into a pathetic whimper. "Don't do this, Sarah. I made a mistake. We can talk about this. I can explain. I was just desperate for a business opportunity." "A business opportunity to get married again?" Sarah cut him off. "Don't lie, Kevin. I saw all the pictures of your party. It was so extravagant. It's a shame, isn't it? The party lasts one day, but you'll be paying for it for the rest of your life." Sarah turned to her office security guard, who had been standing by the door. "Mr. Henderson, please escort these guests out. They're disturbing the employees." "Wait, Sarah, wait!" Carol suddenly dropped to her knees, hugging Sarah's legs. The crocodile tears started flowing again. "I'm sorry, Sarah. I was wrong. Don't kick us out. We have nowhere to go. My feet hurt. We haven't eaten all day." Sarah looked down at the old woman who had always insulted her. In the past, Sarah would have immediately softened and given her everything. But her mind flashed back to the caption on Carol's Facebook post. "You deserve all of this." Sarah gently pulled her leg away from Carol's grasp. "I'm sorry, Carol. The nearest homeless shelter is a few blocks over. They have free food and beds there. This, however, is a place for people who work hard, not a place for parasites," Sarah said icily. "Sarah, how could you be so cruel?" Kevin cried out. "Crueler than a husband who secretly mortgages the house his wife lives in for another woman?" Sarah shot back. "Oh, and one more thing, Kevin. The first hearing for the divorce is next week. Be there. If you don't show up, the outcome and whether I file that police report depends on your behavior. If you ever dare to bother me again, that file goes straight to the district attorney's office." Sarah turned and walked back up the stairs, her head held high. She didn't look back, even as she heard Carol's wails and Kevin's muffled curses. Mr. Henderson and 2 burly warehouse workers approached Kevin. "Sir, please leave peacefully, or we will be forced to drag you out," Mr. Henderson said firmly. Kevin stared at Sarah's retreating back. He knew he had lost, completely. He had not only lost his home and a devoted wife, but he had also lost his freedom. The shadow of prison now loomed over him, more terrifying than any ghost. With stumbling steps, Kevin helped his mother out of the building. The late afternoon sun beat down on them mercilessly. On the hot sidewalk, with a large suitcase full of useless party clothes, Kevin and Carol sat in silence. Luxury cars sped past them. People bustled by, engrossed in their own lives. No one cared about the formerly rich, who now had nothing but debt and regret. "Where are we going to sleep tonight, Kevin?" Carol asked weakly, her voice hoarse from crying. Kevin looked up at the orange-tinted sky. He felt his pockets, empty. His wallet contained only useless plastic cards. "Over there, in that storefront," he said, pointing to a closed shop across the street. "Until I can figure out how to run from the police." That night was the first time Kevin and Carol experienced the cold of an LA night without a thick blanket and air conditioning. Meanwhile, on the top floor of her building, Sarah closed her curtains, locked the door to her past, and smiled as she welcomed a future that was entirely her own. The sky over Los Angeles that evening was overcast, as if mourning the fate of the 2 souls now sitting despondently on the sidewalk, not far from where their mansion once stood. 3 days had passed since their dramatic expulsion from Sarah's office. 3 days that felt like 3 years to Kevin and Carol. The large suitcase filled with party clothes and a wedding tuxedo, once a source of pride, was now a heavy burden they had to drag everywhere. Their leftover change from the taxi fare was gone, spent on cheap bread and bottled water. Their appearance was pitiful. Kevin's expensive suit was wrinkled, dirty, and smelled of stale sweat from sleeping in doorways. Carol's face, once glowing from expensive clinic treatments, was now dull, oily, and covered in mosquito bites. There was no dignity left, no arrogance. "Kevin, I'm hungry," Carol whimpered, her voice weak and raspy. She clutched her aching stomach. "Where is the life you promised? You said you'd take me to fancy restaurants. You said Amber was rich." Hearing Amber's name, Kevin's anger flared again. Since the incident at the empty lot, Amber's number was unreachable. She had blocked him on all social media. His new wife had vanished, taking with her the diamond wedding ring Kevin had bought on a credit card whose bill was now strangling him. Kevin managed to turn on his phone, which had 1% battery left. A single message from an unknown number. It was a video. Kevin opened it with trembling hands. On the cracked screen, Amber's face appeared. She was in an open-top sports car, sitting next to a bald, older man wearing a thick gold chain. "Hi, Kevin, my poor ex-husband," Amber said in the video, laughing. "Thanks for the vacation. Too bad you were just faking it. Oh, and don't look for me. I've already found a new sponsor. A real one. Not a deadbeat fraud like you. Bye now." The video ended. Kevin's phone screen went black, the battery finally dead. "Erg!" Kevin screamed in frustration, smashing the dead phone on the sidewalk until it shattered into pieces. "What is it, Kevin? What did Amber say?" Carol asked frantically. "She's gone, Mom. She just used me. She ran off with the jewelry," Kevin said, pulling at his own hair. "We have nothing, Mom. Absolutely nothing." In the depths of their despair, a black SUV pulled up slowly in front of them. The back window glided down. A blast of cool air from the car's AC washed over Kevin and Carol's sweaty faces. Inside sat Sarah. She looked fresh, fragrant, and incredibly classy in her sunglasses. She didn't look at them with anger, but with a flat, detached gaze, the look one gives to unimportant strangers. "Sarah!" Carol cried out, a flicker of hope in her eyes. She crawled toward the car door, not caring that her knees were scraping against the rough asphalt. "Sarah, please help me. I know you're a good person. You can't bear to see me like this. Take me home, please. I promise I'll be a good mother-in-law." Kevin stood up, his eyes welling with tears. "Sarah, please. I messed up. Withdraw the police report. I promise I'll do anything to pay you back. Just please, no jail time." Sarah took off her sunglasses. She looked at Carol begging on the asphalt, then turned her gaze to Kevin, who looked like a complete loser. "Home?" Sarah asked softly. "You seem to forget. You don't have a home to go back to. And about that police report?" Sarah motioned to her driver. The driver handed a brown envelope out the window to Kevin. "That's your first summons from the police department. Be there tomorrow morning. If you don't show, they'll come and get you," Sarah said coldly. Kevin took the envelope with a hand that shook uncontrollably. His legs felt weak. "And one more thing," Sarah added, a faint, meaningful smile on her lips. "Carol, remember your Facebook post the other day? The caption was so good, so inspiring." Carol fell silent, her face turning pale as she remembered her own arrogance. Sarah continued, mimicking Carol's tone from that day. "Enjoy your new life. You deserve all of this." Without waiting for a reply, Sarah raised the car window. The tinted glass closed completely, separating Sarah's comfortable world from Kevin's hell. The SUV pulled away smoothly, leaving a cloud of dust that settled on Kevin and Carol. Inside the car, Sarah leaned back, relieved. She didn't look back. For her, rearview mirrors were for checking traffic, not for looking at a past she had thrown in the trash. She looked ahead at the wide, open road. Behind her, on the noisy sidewalk, Kevin collapsed, clutching the police summons. Carol was wailing, regretting her greed. But regret always comes too late. The mansion was gone, the wealth was gone, and the person who had loved them unconditionally was gone forever. They had traded a diamond for a rock, and now that rock had come crashing down on their own heads. Sarah smiled. It was a beautiful day. Cherish sincerity. Never take for granted a partner who has been with you from the beginning, just for a moment of fleeting pleasure. Don't be greedy. Greed and a fake lifestyle will only lead to real destruction. Karma is real. Be careful with your words and actions. What you put out into the world will come back to you, often in a more painful way.